everyone, and welcome back to Franchise Vibes, where we're going to discuss everything in franchising and sometimes everything in between. And I love this topic because, again, this is the reason why I want to bring different types of businesses and let you guys understand how wide the industry is when it comes to franchising. So today, the vibes we're on is B2B vibes. We're going to be discussing the business of saving businesses money. And I'm so happy to have you here today with us. Dan, please tell us more about yourself and your business.
Sure thing. Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. So myself, I come from a background of technology sales and security, network security, corporate America, 31 years, running large sales teams, and really just enjoying that part of helping companies to secure themselves from cyber criminals. And it was a good run, but along the way, I always had desired to own my own business and to be more entrepreneurial. And um, I found my way over the last couple of years talking to different franchise consultants, and the one that started to resonate the most with me was Schooley Mitchell. And upon the process of trying to make a way out of corporate America or try to do that at the same time as running the franchise became a real challenge. And then as life would have it, just when I was really trying to make a decision on what I was going to do, I was asked to travel a lot more at my company that I was at. And it's because we've been acquired by a bigger public company and they needed me out on the road a lot more, which would not necessarily correlate to more sales. It just meant getting out in front of more people more often. And that's kind of more the way of a bigger company. And I had always, over the years, been very, very careful with how I manage my time, travel, and what I do in terms of going away from the family with travel. And so they were asking me to travel 2 or 3 days a week on average, and I just said that's not possible. My faith, doing ministry for the Lord Jesus, and my faith, and coaching my boys' soccer teams, and just being around community and not being off on the road all the time, especially while I'm raising my last three children in the home. My boys, I have a 16, 14, 11-year-old in the home still, and just raising them is so important to me. So I made the decision that I want to be closer to home, but also have an impact on the community around me, around the Charlotte, North Carolina area, and be able to not only help businesses save money, but also have an opportunity to meet people I never would meet before and have the potential and opportunity for ministry opportunities to share the hope of Jesus or whatever it might be in the process. And so that's what I've been doing.
Nice, nice. So tell us a little more about Schooley Mitchell. I understand it is the largest independent cost reduction consulting company in North America. What's the story behind how the brand grew into that position?
Yeah, I'll be happy to share that. One other thing I'll say real quick is that my process of choosing to go to Schooley Mitchell, which you'll hear more about probably here today, had a lot to do with my oldest son, who's 22, and the opportunity for us to do the business together. And it's been really a great, unique opportunity to have my son Braden and myself run the business together and
Nice.
find our ability to interact and him to learn, for me to be able to instill some different skill sets and some experience that I've had over the years. At the same time, I'm learning from him. And so we've had a great time here the first 5 months we've been doing this together of really getting in the trenches and learning things together and building a business plan and trying to follow that, finding the gaps. So I want to share that before I get into the Schooley Mitchell piece. So um,
Sure.
yeah, so I mean, Schooley Mitchell, I mean, as an independent cost reduction and the largest in the country, um, over 20 years of experience. The franchise started out in the telecom industry, so helping with wireless type of opportunities. Got very, very good at that and still is very, very good at that. It's bread and butter. But then also realized that, wait a minute, there's many other essential business services that companies utilize. Why don't we look at some of those? And so they've built a real consistent, proven business model that works. They have a good support framework. They have a warehouse that has all the sales and marketing content, case studies, win reports, workflow models, things like that. And then they have good training. And some of it they actually make mandatory so that they know that you've been through the training and understand the categories and the products and the way to use the platforms, the warehouse. So that's been a great part. And another reason why they've really probably thrived is everybody wants to save money.
Mm,
They may not always realize it, but everybody wants to save money. And this is a recession-proof solution. So whether
mm,
it's a recession, whether things are booming and growing out in the market, you always have an opportunity, a market opportunity with what we do here at Schooley Mitchell. And thankfully, we're not in a recession, but at some point we will go back into one. And I know at
mhm.
that point I don't have to fold up my, put my tent away and fold it up and go home and wait for the recession to end. I can actually probably, drive the business even better during a recession time where people are looking to save money and counting every penny. So.
So I have seen models such as Schooley Mitchell. Can you share with us what's different from other consulting or advisory types of businesses?
Sure thing. So I think one is the staying power. It's a franchise that's grown over years. They've learned a lot. They've gained a tremendous amount of experience, and in that, Schooley Mitchell's been able to build out a national benchmarking database, and that
Mm,
database has data from 33,000 plus clients, 4,700 plus vendor relationships. And so you have this ability to look at a situation and ask somebody, how do you know you get the best price? And they really don't know because they're basing it off of one set of invoices, one set of contracts, or maybe a few
mhm,
people brought in to give a few different variable looks at their invoicing. But what Schooley Mitchell can do is we can look at what they have and we can look at it across many, many other companies we've recently worked with and look across our database to see where the benchmark should be and then hold the vendor um, responsible to go to that lower price point because we see it in other companies. And they can't say we can't go any lower. We can say, yes, you can. You have 10 times in the last 6 months with other companies we've worked with. So it gives us this ability to have clout, the business experience, and the leverage to drive negotiations in a professional way. Um,
mm,
I would also say the other franchisees. Now, everywhere you go, you're going to meet good people, but I've really enjoyed working with some of the seasoned vets that are here that have been in the franchise for a number of years. And I found that there's a lot that have been here 5, 7, 10, 12, 15, 20 years. Now, in order to be somewhere that long, there has to be a market opportunity. There has to be a way to make really good money and be successful in what you're doing and enjoy it and feel like you're making a difference. And I think that's what we're seeing here at Schooley Mitchell so far. And we're also
mhm.
sharing in some opportunities with some of the other franchisees. And that's been really exciting to be able to work together with other franchisees that have more experience than us in this space, but I'm also maybe helping them understand some things that I've learned over the years in other spaces. So that's been a really neat part of it.
Yeah, and that's a great point because I always tell people that comes to me that's looking into this industry that the one good thing about the franchise industry is is the network, right? You want to also network with other franchisees as well. So I think that that's an important point. So I know that the franchisees aren't selling products, right? But you're selling advice. How does that model create trust and value for your clients?
So our sole focus is on our client success, and our model creates a trust and a process that consistently gets results, and that's an area where we're excelling right now. So we know that 28% of the time on average we're getting savings across all our categories. So I shouldn't say 28, we're getting 28% savings across our categories. And so that's a good place to start with companies, letting them know that we've benchmarked this and we know that we can get savings on average. It might be a little bit less, it might be a little bit more. So that's been a really, really nice way to start off building trust that we've done this, we've seen it, and we're getting these great savings. But while we do have a per hour fee that we offer for some of the services we offer, a majority of what we do is performance based. And so what it is we're basically coming in and we're saying we're going to put our money where our mouth is. We're going to invest as an extension of your company. We're going to invest our time, our resources, our analysts to go and find you the best rates possible and get your contract terms in the best position possible for you so you're winning. And you don't have to come up with a purchase order. You don't have to come up with money up front and then make sure you show a TCO or an ROI based on that. We're doing this at no charge. And then once we get to a stage where we show you the savings, then we share in those savings. So if we don't generate enough savings, and that happens from time to time for a business or a certain category, we've still offered value because we come back to our clients and say, we just offered you a no cost audit. We audited and looked at what you're doing and you're doing a great job. You've got great rates. Yes, we could lower maybe 5% or 8. Is that worth it? Maybe not. But if we can get a higher amount of savings, we generally would move forward with the clients. And so they have peace of mind knowing that, one, they don't have to invest a bunch of money up front. Two, most of the resources and time and efforts on our side. And three, if we do have cost savings for them, it's a win-win. And the last thing I'll say on that is, not only do we get the cost savings and optimization up front, but then our post-audit team, which is our largest team at Schooley Mitchell, tracks and manages on a monthly and or quarterly basis how we're doing and how they're doing with the vendor. And we are the extension of the company, and we give them reports. And if there's errors or anything that needs to be corrected, we do it and we take care of it. And then we give that report back to our clients. So they don't have to run around and deal with it day in and day out, dealing with different vendors. That's time consuming and takes them away from their core competencies.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I do talk a lot about fit, making sure that you have the right transferable skills. And I'm listening to or thinking back at your background and some of your skills and that alignment. What would you say is the ideal candidate for Schooley Mitchell, and what type of backgrounds translate best into success? Because in my mind, I'm thinking definitely, sales would be a big part of that.
Right, right. 100%. Without sales experience, can you be successful? Yes. Is it a much harder trail to go? Yes.
Mhm.
There's a number of reasons for that. This is not a place where you come and the phone rings off the hook and you have a bunch of inbound leads coming in. What I found very early on, and I actually knew before I even signed on, is that this is a latent pain. What I mean by that is, companies want to save money. They realize they should save money and they should be reallocating those funds back into things that help drive their business, whether it's growth or initiatives, whatever they're doing. But they've got many other things they're dealing with. And so when you come to somebody and talk about helping them optimize and lower and reduce their rates on their essential business services, it gets their attention, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be the first thing on their list that they have to focus on. And so you've got to have a series of experiencing and knowledge to track through the process of getting leads in the door and then manage them through the cycle to try to keep a sense of urgency to move things forward. And very much a proactive go type of approach that you need to do. And you have to have the right balance. You can't smother people. You can't drive them too hard or you'll drive them away. You got to step back when you have I call it spidey sense, right? When you have that tingling
Mhm.
of, I gotta step back and give these people space. Now, that doesn't mean a business person, somebody that's run a business or somebody that's run a purchasing department before can't do this. They can. I mean, anybody can do this if they put their mind to it, but they're going to need to really train themselves in some different sales techniques and approaches and make sure they have thick skin, because you're going to get a lot of people not responding to you. You're going to get a lot of rejection. But for every, 10 or 15, 20 no's you get that yes, and you keep going. And that's the name of what we do. Even though it's consulting and it's kind of different, we're not selling anything. It's still a very
Mhm.
similar sales model. So I would say salespeople first, and then business owners, people that own businesses and really know how to understand how business works, I think are helpful. And then there's people from other industries that I think do pretty well. But anybody with sales experience generally does very well here if you stay in it and push and drive and do the things you know how to do.
Yeah, sounds like it. So just to give a sense of a day in the life, like what would an owner, someone who I introduce to this business concept, what can they expect to be their day-to-day look like? What is their business going to look like?
Well, it really depends on where someone is in the life cycle of their franchise. So for our Schooley Mitchell franchise, I've been doing it full time 5 months or so, and
Mhm.
a full time focus. And so I know, number one, that we're responsible for our success, and that's meant a lot of networking, a lot of harnessing relationships in the community across different industries. And we simply don't want to limit ourselves into one or two categories or one and two industries right now, because we feel like there's so many places we can go and so much we can do across every different industry. And so a day in a life is really a lot of networking, phone calls, emails, multiple touches, really building out, what does a pipeline look like? What does the funnel look like? How many, we call them NQLs, non-qualified leads, do we need to get at the front of the funnel? And then there's a sales cycle through that funnel that we're managing. And this comes from my management experience and running sales teams,
Mm-hmm.
um, that we're running through that, and then we're finding the gaps. Where are we weak? Where aren't we doing well? Where do we need to improve? And that's what we're doing on a daily basis, is really blocking and tackling the inputs. So all the things we need to do to get the outputs, which is clients signing on a service agreement, then moving to a value report, which is the final sign on. Then you move forward to bring things into their environment. And so if somebody's been here for 18 to 24 months, maybe 12 to 18 months, a lot more referrals and calls start coming inbound.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more activity that happens, especially if you get into an association or you're in a large networking group where you're speaking to a one-to-many. And that's what we're trying to do as well, is get a one-to-many focus where we're speaking to 25 or 50 or 100 different people in an association that hear the message and it resonates, and they're like, yeah, let's go. Let's talk about this. So I'd say lots of blocking and tackling, lots of activity in terms of outbound, and mixing that up with everything from email to LinkedIn to phone calls to networking, getting out in front of people. We're trying to have 4 to 5 meetings a week in person.
Mm-hmm.
Some weeks we have 8 or 9, some weeks we have a couple right now. So it's blending, and I think at the end of the day, our ultimate goal is we're going to keep grinding until we get to that point where the revenues starting to tick in and the customer base is coming, and then we can kind of focus in on uh, maintaining, and then you got to kind of start the cycle back again, continue going to get people in. So
Well, you touched on something that I definitely want to expand on a little bit. That you've now been 5 months full time into the business. So when you started off more of a part time, or what I would explain is semi absentee. You want to tell us a little bit more about that and your transition?
I knew a while back that I wanted to start some type of an entrepreneurial business, some kind of business. And in doing so, I felt that I could do both at the same time really well. And I've talked to other franchisees as well. And it's challenging to try to grow this business and then have another full-time job. Anybody will tell you that. There's a few others I've talked to that are trying to do that or trying to do that, and just said I had to just it to me, you've watched Shark Tank, right? I mean, Shark Tank, one of the questions they ask is, how much time are you putting into this? Well, I have a full-time job. Most of the time they won't invest in those people because they're like, you know, if you don't have a good running rate revenue, a good model that differentiates you, and you don't have a full-on focus, how committed are you to this? And so I got to that point where I was balancing both, but my son Braden, who I mentioned earlier, was running the franchise, and he was doing a good job, but he's younger and doesn't have the same experience. And of course, two heads are better than one. And just got to a point where it made sense for me to make a transition out. And since I did that and doing this full time, it's made a big difference between, if we look back 4 months ago to now, and we whiteboard at least every 2 weeks. We have a whiteboard that we keep track of everything. And when we look at the gaps and what we've done, it sometimes we look at it now and go, oh man, we need to do so much more. But then we look back to 3 or 4 months ago, the whiteboard, and we're like, ooh, there was a lot of white on that board. Now there's a lot less white, and we got a lot more things going on. And that encourages you and keeps you going. So that's been exciting. And yeah, there's days I wake up at 4 in the morning and go, what have I done? But there's many days I'm like, this is great. This is what I wanted. I have freedom. I'm my own boss. I can take days off when I want, and I can work when I want, when I don't want. And really the results are will show themselves based on what we do together. So
Oh, it's an interesting perspective. Can you share an example maybe of a business where you reduce costs in a way that really surprised them?
sure, we have one of our clients we brought on board is an auto repair shop, and they were doing pretty well with their credit card processing and the fees that go along with that, the effective rates they're called. And but they thought, well, let's take a look at it. So we looked at 3 categories. Based on their size, the merchant services piece was the best one for us to focus on. We looked at it, we started working together, and we were able to come across a payment processor who has a unique model using AI, which is a great differentiator. And we've come through now and been able to save 0.5 to 0.75% in that range off the current effective rate that they had. And that's somewhere between around 24 to $25,000 a year in savings. And
Wow.
yeah, and so they were really excited about that. And as a small business, bringing in 2.5 to 3.5 million a year, you know, $75,000, $200,000 a year in savings, and something that they have to do and they're already doing was a big plus for them. And so um, the other thing I'd say about that is they told us at first that they couldn't probably do it because their current payment processor told them they can't change their merchant services company in their point of sale system. Why? Because that's how they make their money. And so we hear that a lot. We hear a lot of, oh, well, we can't, we're in this point of sale system and we can't leave the merchant services vendor because they're the only one that works with the system. Well, that was not the case here. We were able to work with them and save them that and also replace their other payment processing company, which was great.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. What are some of the industries or types of businesses that benefit the most, you think, from Schooley Mitchell services?
That's a loaded question. Uh, and the reason for that is it's every industry can use our services, which is a great thing.
Hmm.
It's really hard to go into a business with any kind of business and say, this is the only types of companies we can work with. This is the only industry, unless you have a bunch of products or solutions to offer, and you can go in with one of 10 or 15 different solutions. That works pretty well. But in this case, we really hone in on 2 to 5 categories per industry. And I would say the industries, and a lot of it depends on kind of where you fall into and what fits. We have different franchisees that focus on dental associations. We have some that focus on nonprofits only. We have some that focus on manufacturing, and that's one of their core focuses. For us, we found that manufacturing is really good because there's generally 5 to 6 different categories, cost reduction categories that they can utilize. And then while focusing on manufacturing is one area for us, nonprofits is another one. And we see a lot of franchisees go in that direction. Why? Well, we all have a hole in our heart somewhere or a point in our heart where we want to help people out. And when you get into nonprofits that you believe in, we're working on one now in Charlotte that helps um, people, people off the streets and out of addiction and helps them renew their lives. It's got a Christ-centered focus, but it's a ministry here in Charlotte that's really well known and respected. And we're going to help them save money in 2 or 3 categories that they can put back into the ministry to help men and women that have been embroiled in addiction and get out of that and go out and produce in society and feel like they're of value in the society because they are a great value, right? And so that's been really, really important for us. So when you have the nonprofit manufacturing and then auto dealerships and repair shops are another area we focus on. And the reason we do that, as I mentioned earlier, there's a differentiation we have with an AI model that's working right now. And while we have that window of opportunity, we want to help these businesses. And again, we can save them generally 0.5 to 0.75% on their effective rates on their credit card processing, as well as other areas, waste and recycling, shipping, small package or small parcel shipping, things like that.
Nice, nice. So is there anywhere or where do you see the biggest growth opportunities for this business in the next 3 to 5 years?
I mean, I'll use the buzzword leverage AI. And I mean, we're gonna need to leverage AI to further develop our national benchmarking database and utilize it and be able to gain a lot of value from that data because that really is our secret sauce. That's a database nobody else has in the world that we can leverage, and that gives us clout and it gives us the ability to really negotiate with a lot more ability to see the details versus what individual companies can do. And so that's important. I think also I know that there's investments in R&D at Schooley Mitchell, and that R&D is really on what other categories make sense. I mean,
Mm,
I mean, day in and day out, you can find a category somewhere where somebody says, "Hey, can you save us money here? Hey, well, what about this? Does Schooley Mitchell do that?" And right now we have 15 categories, key categories that we focus in on, and it's important not to spread ourselves too thin with too many categories. But there are other categories that we're constantly looking at that we're saying, where does it make sense to see if we can add another category, which gets us an ability to get in the door at places for new client possibilities, but also gives us the ability to cross sell into current client base, which is always a nice thing. School Mitchell has about a 70% retention rate. So after a 3-year term, 70% of the companies stay with us because of our post audit and how we make life so much easier for them and then don't have to deal with all the headaches of the vendors. And we maintain the best price and we keep up with it. We keep up with new technologies that come out and make sure we educate our clients on those things. And so I think once there's, other categories that come out that make sense or that we decide to focus in on, that just gives us more ability to grow the potential of cost savings for our clients.
That's amazing information. 70%. Wow.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. It's a lot easier to retain customers and keep them happy and cross sell and renew them than it is to get new clients. It costs a lot less, takes a lot less time. So that's what I prefer to do once we get them on board. Yeah.
Well, you know what, speaking from as a franchisee, I mean, is there anything that you haven't said yet as far as maybe the training or the support that you do get being an owner?
Yeah. I mean, there's ongoing support. There's ongoing good news memos we get from headquarters. We get notes out from Dennis Schooley, one of the founders, that sends out notes and information. We have good news calls that we do with a lot of new franchisees to share what's working, what's not working. Um, we're really encouraged to get together with other franchisees to share and not look at it as competition, but look at it as sharing and helping each other. Because one other thing I would share that I didn't about one of the huge advantages of Schooley Mitchell
Mhm.
is one, we don't have any capital expenses to get into it. We don't have to buy products. We don't have to come up with a lot of capital to get into the franchise. But I mean, there are other areas of focus that we're able to focus in on, and the fact that we don't have to hire people and have a big team. Not that I'd have a problem with that, but trying to find good help and people and keep them on board and pay them and have the pressure of payroll and having a lot of people is another thing where I didn't want to deal with that right now. Now down the road with Schooley Mitchell, you can have 3, 5, 7 people on your team. If we grow the business to that extent and I can hire 2 or 3 people, we're going to do that. But I don't have to do that in the beginning. I can do that at my own rate. And Schooley Mitchell doesn't penalize us for doing that. They'll train for almost no charge. They want people to come in. They want more feet on the street. And the last part is we're not confined to a territory. So
Okay.
most franchises, it's like you got this zip code, you have these you have these area codes or these zip codes, and you can't go out of there. Schooley Mitchell, you can go anywhere in North America, as long as you follow the database and the rules that we have for managing accounts and for putting your mark on an account and saying it's your account. So there's a system where we do that. And as long as you follow that, you can go anywhere you want. You're not just stuck to your backyard. So I think that's a big one that I would share.
Dan, thank you so much for joining us and sharing this information. And it transitions well into my last question. So, as we do wrap up, what advice would you give someone who is considering a B2B type of model, such as Schooley Mitchell, versus some of the other type of businesses, franchise businesses they can own?
Yeah, thank you. I think what's really important is so a wise person said to me recently, whenever you start a business, whether it's Schooley Mitchell, whatever it is, it's going to take longer than you expect. It's going to be harder than you expect, and it's going to cost more than you expect. And you got to have that mindset. You got to be willing and ready to adjust your expectations, and they can be good adjustments. It could be adjustments where you're not real pleased, but you're just looking at the truth of, okay, wait, it's going to take me longer to drive the revenue that I expected to drive. Um, I would also say that having thick skin and realizing that you're gonna get plenty of no's, you're gonna get plenty of non-callbacks, you're gonna get plenty of people dragging their feet. That's the nature of sales. That's the nature of products out there and solutions and service offerings. It's no different here, and it's not an easy call a few people and before you know it, you have something done in a couple of weeks. It takes a good 3 to 6 months to get clients over the goal line and get them invoicing. So you got to build that pipeline and have them going staggered and bringing them in, and that's what we're in the process of doing. So to come in here, I would suggest even here or anywhere, it's
Mhm.
always better to come in and try to cash flow as much as you can versus taking out loans and finding out that, oh no, I can't pay the mortgage or the rent in 9 months if I don't have X amount of revenue coming in, and it's taking a lot longer. Then you start to do desperate things. And so I would highly encourage just people to think strongly about that. Not saying don't do it, but Bible says that the borrower is slave to the lender. So So yeah, I would say that, and realize it's a latent pain type of solution that we're involved in here. People want it, they need it, but how bad do they want it, and when do they need it? The questions, and you got to help them. You got to help them see that. You have to help them understand that, and that all comes with trust and the relationship, and coming alongside them.
Dan, it's been great. Thank you so much for joining us today. And as I said, this is the reason why I have this channel as well, because I do want to show the different types of businesses that can be owned. So this will be great for someone who has a strong sales background that doesn't want the overhead, the brick and mortar, and don't want a large team, and stay in that B2B space. There are models where you can do that. And if you are interested in a model such as Schooley Mitchell, please reach out, precisionfranchise.com, and I'll be happy to make that connection. This is what I do. Dan, thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Tamika. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Until the next time, everyone. Bye bye.